The school was unusually quiet that morning. The hallways, once full of noise and laughter, felt heavy and cold. Even the walls seemed to listen. Inside the principal's office, Mr. Raymond sat alone. His hands were shaking. A phone lay on the table in front of him. That phone had just changed everything. 10 minutes ago, he received a call. A call he never wanted to hear. The voice on the other side was calm, cold, and final. Your school funding has been suspended. The man said, "You have 7 days to present a solution. If you fail, the school will shut down." The line went dead. Mr. Raymond stared at the phone. 7 days to save hundreds of students. 7 days to save teachers' jobs. 7 days to save the school's future or lose everything. He stood up and looked out the window. Students were arriving, laughing, talking, living normal lives. They had no idea. They did not know that their school was standing on the edge of collapse in the cafeteria. The smell of food filled the air. At the far corner stood Mrs. Clara, the lunch lady. She wore the same faded uniform she had worn for years. Her hands moved fast, packing lunches, counting trays. No one noticed her. No one ever did. Students passed by without looking. Some whispered, some laughed. "She smells like old food," one boy said. "She's just a lunch lady." Another replied, "Mrs. Clara heard everything she always did, but she never answered. She believed silence was stronger than anger." Back in the office, Mr. Raymond called an emergency meeting. Teachers filled the room. Some looked confused. Some looked worried when he told them the truth. The room exploded with panic. "This is impossible." One teacher shouted, "We already cut costs." Another said, "There is no solution." Someone whispered. Mr. Raymond raised his hand. "There is one last option," he said quietly. "A challenge." Everyone looked at him. "The board will review one final proposal. A complete financial and operational plan. If it works, we survive. And if not," a teacher asked. Mr. Raymond took a deep breath. "We close." Silence. The news spread fast. By lunchtime, students felt something was wrong. Teachers looked tense. Announcements were short and cold. Whispers filled the cafeteria. "Did you hear something bad is happening? My parents say the school might close. What will happen to us?" Fear slowly replaced laughter. Mrs. Clara stood behind the counter, listening. She heard every word. Her hands stopped for a moment. She knew that tone. She had heard it before, years ago, in another place, another life. That afternoon, Mr. Raymond sat alone again. He opened old files, numbers, charts, budgets. Nothing worked. Everything ended. The same way, failure. He rubbed his eyes. Then his phone rang again. He answered quickly, "Yes." The voice surprised him. "Sir, it's me. Clara from the cafeteria." Mr. Raymond paused. "Yes. Something wrong with the food delivery?" "No," she said softly. "It's about the school." He frowned. "What about it?" There was a short silence. Then she said something unexpected. "I think I can help." Mr. Raymond almost laughed. Almost. But something stopped him. Her voice was calm, clear, not nervous. "How?" he asked. "I heard about the challenge," she replied. "I have an idea." He leaned back in his chair. With all respect, he thought. She was just the lunch lady. What could she possibly know about budgets and systems? Still, he asked, "What kind of idea?" "A solution," she said simply. Mr. Raymond looked at the clock. He had nothing left. "Come to my office tomorrow morning," he said. "But I cannot promise anything." "That's enough," she replied. The call ended that night. Mrs. Clara sat alone in her small apartment. The lights were dim. She opened an old box under her bed. Inside were notebooks, awards, certificates. A life she never talked about. A life people never imagined. She touched one paper and whispered, "Maybe it's time." The next morning, the school gathered for an announcement. Students sat in the hall. Teachers stood at the back. Mr. Raymond walked to the microphone. His voice was serious. "Our school faces a great challenge," he said. "But we will not give up." Whispers filled the room. Then he added something shocking. "We are open to ideas. From anyone." Students laughed softly. Anyone. They looked around. Then they saw her Mrs. Clara stood at the side of the hall. The lunch lady quiet. Quiet. No one knew that this was the beginning. No one knew that the person they laughed at was about to change everything the next morning. Felt different. The air inside the school was heavy, like something big was about to happen. Students walked slower. Teachers avoided eye contact, and Mrs. Clara walked into the school earlier than usual. She did not wear anything special. The same old uniform. The same quiet face, but inside her chest, her heart was loud as she walked through the hallway. Memories followed her. Long nights with books. Endless numbers. Dreams that once felt possible, she pushed those thoughts away. "This is not about me," she whispered to herself. "This is about the children." In the cafeteria, students stared. Why is she here so early? Maybe she's in trouble. She probably messed up something. They laughed softly. Mrs. Clara heard them. She always did. But today, she did not feel small. Today, she felt ready at exactly 9 a.m. Mr. Raymond stood at his office door. He saw her coming. For a second, he doubted himself. "Am I really doing this?" he thought. Still, he opened the door. "Good morning, Mrs. Clara," he said. "Good morning, sir." She replied calmly. "Please, sit." She sat, her hands rested quietly on her lap. Mr. Raymond cleared his throat. "I'll be honest," he said. "This situation is very serious." "I know," she replied. "We are dealing with experts, accountants, planners." She nodded. "So, why do you think you can help?" he asked. Mrs. Clara looked up. Her eyes were steady. "Because I see what others ignore." He leaned forward. "What do you mean?" She took a slow breath. "You see numbers on paper," she said. "I see habits." He frowned. She continued. "I serve food every day. I see what students eat, what they throw away, what teachers order, what gets wasted." Mr. Raymond stayed silent. She went on. "I see patterns, and patterns tell stories." She reached into her bag, pulled out a notebook, old worn. She placed it on the desk. "I wrote things down," she said. "For years." Mr. Raymond opened it, pages full of neat handwriting. Numbers, small drawings, simple plans. His eyes widened. "This," he whispered. "This is detailed." Mrs. Clara nodded. "I never planned to show it," she said. "Now, the school needs it." Mr. Raymond flipped through more pages. Food costs reduced. Waste control ideas. Supplier changes. Time management, it was clear. Simple, smart, outside the office. Students walked by. One boy stopped and looked through the glass. "Why is the lunch lady with the principal?" he asked. Others gathered. "Maybe she's fired." Or maybe she complained. "This is funny." They laughed. Inside the office, no one was laughing. Mr. Raymond closed the notebook slowly. "Mrs. Clara," he said, "why didn't you ever tell anyone?" She smiled sadly. No one asked. That answer hit him hard. He stood up. "This could work," he said. "But people will not accept it easily." She stood too. "I don't need praise," she said. "I only need one chance." He looked at her. "You will get it," he said, later that day. An announcement echoed through the school. All students and staff, Mr. Raymond said. There will be a special presentation tomorrow. Excitement spread. What presentation? Is presenting? Is it about the school closing? Rumors exploded. Mrs. Clara returned to the cafeteria. She served food like always. Same silence. Same whispers. But something had changed. She was no longer invisible. That night, she sat at her table again. She opened her notebook, added one more page at the top. She wrote, "Tomorrow." She closed the book, looked at the ceiling, and whispered, "Let them laugh." The next day arrived faster than anyone expected. The school hall was full. Students filled the chairs. Teachers stood along the walls. Whispers moved like waves. Everyone was nervous. Everyone was curious. On the stage, a long table stood under bright lights. A projector waited silently. Mr. Raymond stood near the microphone. His face was serious. This is it, he thought. This is our last hope. In the back of the hall, Mrs. Clara waited. She stood alone. No special clothes. No badge, no title, just the lunch lady. Students noticed her and began to whisper again. Why is she here? Is she lost? This is going to be embarrassing. Some laughed quietly. Some recorded on their phones. Mr. Raymond cleared his throat. "Thank you for coming," he said. "Today, we will hear a proposal to save our school." The room became silent. Then he added something unexpected. The presenter is Mrs. Clara. For 1 second, no one reacted. Then the hall exploded. Laughter, gasps, shock. The lunch lady? This is a joke. We are finished. Teachers looked at each other in disbelief. Students laughed louder. Mrs. Clara felt. Every sound hit her chest. Her hands trembled. For a moment, fear tried to stop her. Then she remembered the children, the teachers, the school. She took one step forward, then another. Each step felt heavy. Someone shouted from the crowd, "Go back to the kitchen." More laughter followed. Mr. Raymond raised his hand. "Enough," he said firmly. The noise slowly faded. Mrs. Clara reached the stage. She stood behind the table. The lights were bright too. Bright, she could not see faces clearly, only shadows. Judging shadows, she looked at the microphone, took a deep breath. Her voice was soft at first. "I know what you are thinking," she said. "You think this is a mistake?" The room stayed quiet. She continued. "You see my uniform, my job, and you decide who I am." A few students shifted uncomfortably. She pressed a button. The projector turned on. Numbers appeared on the screen. Simple charts. Clear words. "I work in the cafeteria," she said. "And every day I watch food go to waste." She showed a photo. Trays full of untouched food. Gasps filled the room. "This waste costs the school thousands," she said. "Not per year, per month." Teachers leaned forward. Students stopped laughing. She clicked again. A new slide: supplier prices, delivery times, hidden fees. "I compared suppliers," she said. "Some charge more, some deliver less." Mr. Raymond's eyes widened. She spoke slowly, clearly. No big words, no pride, only facts. Then something happened. A teacher stood up. "This data, where did you get it?" he asked. Mrs. Clara looked at him. "From watching, from writing, from caring." The teacher sat down silently. Another student shouted, "You still don't belong here." The room froze. Mrs. Clara paused. She looked toward the voice. "I belong wherever I can help," she said quietly. That sentence stayed in the air. She moved to the final slide. A complete plan. Budget saved. Jobs protected. School open. Total silence. Even the students with phones stopped recording. Then a man from the school board stood up. His face was cold. "You expect us to believe this?" he asked. Mrs. Clara nodded. "You don't have to believe me," she said. "Just check the numbers." He hesitated, then nodded slowly. The board members whispered, among themselves. Minutes passed. They felt like hours. Mrs. Clara stood still. Her legs hurt. Her heart raced. But she did not move. Finally, the man spoke again. "This proposal is impressive." A wave of shock moved through the room. "But," he added, "one question remains." Everyone held their breath. "Why would someone like you," he said, "care this much?" Mrs. Clara smiled softly. "Because this school gave my child hope," she said. "And hope is worth saving." The room went completely silent. Mr. Raymond felt. His throat tightened. Students looked at the floor. Teachers wiped their eyes. The board member sat down. "We will review this immediately." He said. The presentation ended. No applause, just silence. Heavy silence. Mrs. Clara walked off the stage. Her hands were shaking again, but this time, it was not fear. It was relief. As she reached the door, a student whispered, "I didn't know." Mrs. Clara heard it, and for the first time, she smiled. The hall emptied slowly. People walked out in silence. No laughter. No jokes. Only questions. Mrs. Clara stood near the exit, holding her notebook tightly. Her legs felt weak. She had said everything. She could now. Nothing was in her hands. Behind closed doors. The school board met. The door locked. No one could hear them. Inside the hallway, teachers waited. Some prayed quietly. Some stared at the floor. Mr. Raymond paced back and forth. Every step echoed. Tick. Tick, tick. The clock on the wall felt louder than ever. Students gathered in small groups. "Do you think it worked?" She was actually smart. "I feel bad for laughing." A few looked toward the cafeteria for the first time. They saw it differently. Mrs. Clara sat alone on a bench. A memory hit her. Years ago, she waited outside another room. Another decision. Another life. That day, she lost everything. Her hands shook. What if history repeats? She whispered. Inside the boardroom, voices rose. "This is risky. But it makes sense. Why didn't we see this before?" One man stayed quiet. He read the notebook again, slowly, carefully, 2 hours. Past the sun moved across the windows. Hope began to fade. Then the door opened. Everyone froze. The board members stepped out. Their faces unreadable. Mr. Raymond stepped forward. "Well?" he asked. The head board member looked at Mrs. Clara. She stood up slowly. Her heart pounded. He spoke calmly. "We checked every number." A pause. "They are correct." A soft gasp filled the hall. He continued. "This plan does more than save money." Another pause. "It saves dignity." Mrs. Clara's eyes filled with tears. "We approve the proposal," he said. The hall exploded. Applause, cheers, crying. Teachers hugged each other. Students clapped wildly. Mr. Raymond turned to Mrs. Clara. "You saved us," he said softly. She shook her head. "No," she replied. "We saved each other." Later that day, the cafeteria was full, but something felt different. Students said, "Thank you." Teachers smiled. No one laughed. Mrs. Clara served food as always, but now, when she looked up, people looked back. With respect, that night, she returned. Home, she opened the old box. She placed the notebook. Inside, closed it gently. Some stories did not need to be told. They only needed to be lived. Outside, the school lights stayed on, bright, alive the next morning. The school felt new. The same walls. The same halls, but the feeling was different. Mrs. Clara walked into the cafeteria. Like every day, She expected nothing. No attention. No words. But something strange happened. Students stopped talking. One by one, they looked at her, not with laughter, with respect. A boy stepped forward. He was the same boy who once laughed the loudest. "I'm sorry," he said softly. "I was wrong." Mrs. Clara paused. She looked at him. Then she smiled. "Thank you for saying that." She replied. That small moment changed everything. Soon, more students followed. "Thank you for saving our school. We didn't know. We judged you." Each word felt heavy, but healing teachers entered the cafeteria. They thanked her too. One teacher said quietly, "Taught us more than books ever could." Mrs. Clara shook her head. "I only did what was right." She said Mr. Raymond walked in later. He held an envelope. Inside was an offer, a higher position, a better salary, an office. "You deserve this," he said. Mrs. Clara read the paper. Then she folded it carefully. "I don't need a title," she said. "I need purpose." The cafeteria stayed open late that day. Students sat and talked, shared stories for the first time. The lunch lady was part of the conversation that evening. Mrs. Clara cleaned the counters. A student watched quietly. "You're still here," she said. Mrs. Clara nodded. "Yes," she replied. "This is where I belong." As the lights turned off, she looked around. This place once felt small now. It felt powerful. People learned a hard lesson. Respect is not about position. It is about character. Mrs. Clara hung her apron, not as a symbol of shame, but as a badge of honor. Weeks passed. The school did not close. The lights stayed on. The door stayed open. Life slowly returned to normal. But nothing was the same. The new system began. Less food was wasted. Costs dropped. Students noticed. They learned without knowing. Mrs. Clara still arrived early every morning. Same uniform. Same calm walk. But now people greeted her. "Good morning, Mrs. Clara." Those words mattered. Mr. Raymond often asked her advice. Not in secret, in meetings. Teachers listened. Students watched. One day, a small girl stood near the counter. "Can I be smart like you?" she asked. Mrs. Clara bent down. "You already are," she said. "Just don't stop believing." The girl smiled brightly. A newspaper reporter came to the school. They wanted a story. They wanted her face. Mrs. Clara said no. Let the school be the story. She said at home her life felt lighter. The old fear was gone. She slept better. One evening, she walked past the school. Children laughed in the yard. She stopped and listened. That sound was her reward. Mrs. Clara learned something too. She did not need to hide anymore. People stopped calling her the lunch lady. They called her by her name years later. The school still stood strong. New students walked the halls. New teachers taught in the classrooms. But one story never faded. In the cafeteria, a photo hung on the wall. It showed a woman in a simple uniform. Under it were words, "Respect has no job title." Mrs. Clara still worked there, not because she had to, because she chose to. She believed real change starts where people feel invisible. Students now learn something beyond books. They learned to look twice, to listen, to think before laughing. One day, a new student asked, "Who is that lady in the picture?" A teacher smiled and said, "She saved this school." The student looked surprised, "But she looks normal." The teacher replied, "That's the lesson." Mrs. Clara passed by quietly. She heard it. She smiled. She never gave speeches. She never asked for praise. Her life was the message. The school board once asked her to speak. She stood in front of them and said only one line, "Never judge someone by where they stand." Ask what they carry inside. Silence filled the room, the kind of silence that teaches. Outside, children laughed, not in mockery, in joy.